Just to respect your time, those of us who are early and right on time, we are the Robinson Lloyd Resiliency Group. We also do business as Lloyd and Lloyd, and we provide compassionate coaching, uh, clarifying data, as well as results that feel great. Right, so we offer our coaching services throughout schools. It's health and wellness. We have everything from life skills coaching to online math tutoring for students within these schools, as well as we have private clients. And without further ado, Sean, my partner, my husband, he's going to be introducing Matthew. We have two Matthews. We have a Matthew D and a Matthew G. All right.
Good morning, everyone. Let's let somebody else in here. We know Matthew Delpriore. He's graduated from Baruch College in 2005. He's been working in financial services since then with Fortis Lux. Manages a $250 million portfolio. He's been with us about 3 times. He's sharp. He has his presentation ready to go. We also have Matthew G. He's with Freedom, the home team of Freedom Mortgage. They have 18 offices along the East Coast, and he's a mortgage expert as well. So let's not waste time. Let's get started. But we did want to start with a icebreaker that would help to inform the presentation and get some participation going and let our presenters have an idea of where they're going to go, right? Because they know they have so much information, but this will help them to focus in an hour, the 60 minutes, right? So we want to ask you all, we kind of know your names, but we want to know who you are, what you love to do, and I think most importantly, what you want to get out of the 60 minutes. What do you hope to walk away with? What do you want to learn? All right. And you can start that. You can take your mic off. You can put some of it in the chat or however you feel comfortable.
I'll just start and say my name is Matthew Delpriore with Fortis Lux, and I love helping people and helping people make smart decisions about their money based on the things that are most important to them. I'm sitting here in bed, quarantined, not feeling well the past 3 days, so excuse the presence. And I just hope that people walk away with, education is one thing, but empowerment to say, look, if I want to make the American dream work, I have a platform that's going to help me do that, whether it's myself, Matt Gordon, or anyone else that you're surrounding yourself with from a professional basis.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Matt G, you wanna go next?
Yeah, no problem. My name is Matthew Gordon. I'm with the home team of Freedom Mortgage. I've been doing between real estate and mortgages for about 20 years now. On the mortgage side, about, I think, 11 years now. Licensed in New York, New Jersey, Georgia, and Florida. The team is licensed in other states if anybody's thinking anywhere else as well. But one thing I wanted to, make sure everybody knows today, that there are options. You could, we have as low as 600 credit scores. You don't need 20% down that a lot of people think. We even have programs with less than 20% down, and you can still have no PMI. I do want everybody to just walk away with information like that today, and I don't have a presentation available, but I would like to do more of a Q&A if anybody has some questions. All right?
Excellent. Well, Matthew G and Matthew D, I'm going to pop in with a hot question, right? Just before we get into everybody else's. One of the things that I'm Tanya, Sean, one of the things that I want to get out of this is knowing the level of, ease that Black people like myself would have when I'm coming to apply for a mortgage. So that's something that I want to learn from this presentation.
I'll start with that. Like I said, I don't look at color when I'm.
Right. No, man, not right now, but just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just something for us to address. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Tanisha, tell us who you are, what you like to get out of this.
Hello, I'm Tanisha. Overall, I just want to get started on learning about how to become a homeowner for the first time. The steps to take, the process, I just want to know everything about, being a homeowner.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you're in the right place. Maduka, how about you? Not sure.
Oh, good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm same like Tanisha. I'm also want to know everything about being a first-time homeowner.
Excellent. Excellent. Raymond, nice to see you. Welcome. What would
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Tell us what you love to do and what you want to learn.
I love working with kids. But I'm here in this seminar supporting you guys. I just want to be more informed about the process. So I'm excited about the information that everyone has to share.
Thank you. Welcome. Nice to have you. Thanks for your support too. We appreciate it. Let's see. I'm trying to go in order of how we're seeing you guys. Chelsea, nice to see your pretty face. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So what I love to do, I'm an occupational therapist by trade. So that's kind of what I do by day. But I'm also looking to expand other revenues of income. I'm homeowner. So thank you all for having this and looking forward to learning a lot today.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea. Hi, Jalil.
Jalil Mitchell. Oh, is that a picture?
Hey.
Oh, that's a video.
Yeah.
Video. Yeah. I'm just here to, I guess, gain more knowledge on homeownership. This would be, I've already owned one and I've sold one before. I'm just seeing what other steps I could have taken to get through that process. It was a pretty hard process the first time, so if there's a way I can make it easier the second time. Yeah.
Beautiful. You're in the right place. You're in safe hands with Matthew D and Matthew G. Safe hands. All right. Who's next? I think. Oh yeah. So guys, we're gonna get started. Katie, Charmaine, you're joining us for the first time. Lumen, I think you are as well. Queen. Right. So what we're gonna do, you guys could please chat on. We want to make sure that we hop into the presentation, but please feel free to chat. We're going to start. Matthew's going to start off, right? And if you have questions, let's put it in the chat room too, because we just have about 52 minutes left. So Matthew, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean, and thank you so much, Tanya, for putting this together. And thank you, everyone, for taking your time on your Saturday. And I'll say once more, pardon the appearance, just bit under the weather the past few days, so quarantining in a separate room here. But hope everyone's doing well. I think some of you may have come to this workshop in the past, and we went a little quickly because we split it with another investment group who were going through real estate. So today we're going to take our time and really understand, what goes into home ownership and some of the things that we need to prepare for to get to that point. I'm going to pause every couple of slides because I want my partner, Matthew Gordon at Freedom Mortgage, to hop in with some comments. And I also want to pause to make sure that we're leaving time for questions, right, and feedback. I think the best thing that we can do is collaborate here. And so seeing some questions from Wayne and other folks, in terms of passive income. So we're going to talk about that today as well. So feel free to stop me at any time, and I'm just going to get right into it. So this presentation is something that I did. I did a lot of workshops at the Family Justice Center in the Bronx and in Manhattan. And one of the workshops is buy versus rent. And this workshop is going to talk about, preparing yourself for purchasing a home, whether it's purchasing your first home, whether it's purchasing a property for investments or whatever other purpose. So I wanted to start with this top 10 list, which I find interesting because it's not always all true. Right, the real estate market always goes up. Well, in the long term, like most financial assets, yes, assets tend to go up, but there are periods of time, especially in today's environment, where maybe some markets are going down, right? And I think New York and New Jersey are completely different markets than, those in the Midwest and other places. Paying rent is like throwing money away. A lot of people think that, and that may be the case, right? Because you're not building equity into something, but renting is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It gives you flexibility, right? Maybe you just move to a new place. Maybe you need more cash flow right now, and you just need more capital for other goals that you have. So, buying a home should be really planned in the context of what you're doing in your big picture financial life, right? How does it fit in? It is the true American dream, but we want to make sure that we're not house rich and sort of cash poor. Number 3, tax benefits can pay for the cost of the house. Yes, purchasing a home comes with tax benefits, but it's not going to pay for itself, right? So we have the ability to write off up to $10,000 of our property taxes if we're itemizing. The interest on our mortgages for mortgages up to $750,000 are deductible, right? So those are all nice benefits to have, but it's not going to pay for that cost. I really do like number 4, and Matt will talk about this a little bit later. Understanding our debt to income ratios, right? Buying the most house you can afford. And typically speaking, we recommend our clients to not have more than about 36% of their income go towards debt payments, including your mortgage and credit cards and things of that nature. So, really understanding, backing into what is the most house you can afford. We can talk about that. Many of you have already expressed interest in the chat box about passive investments, right? So being a landlord is easy money, the furthest thing from the truth, right? Because you're responsible for a lot of, things that have to be fixed and so on and so forth. So it's definitely, there's real estate investing. You can do it in a very, active manner, or you can do it in a passive manner. And we'll talk a little bit about the differences between the two. The bank owns my house. I think that's, obviously you own the house, you have the title, but if there's a mortgage, right, you typically don't have all the equity in your home. So we'll speak to that. My house is an investment. I would make the argument that, and if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, real estate can be an investment, but your home is a place to live in, right? The equity in the 4 walls of your house, right, earns 0% return for you, right? Your house may have, gone up in value. That's due to supply and demand factors. But if you have $100,000 of equity sitting in your home, that's earning a 0% return. So to me, that's not really an investment, it's just a place to live and have a family. Low mortgage rates are always better, absolutely. Owning may provide more security in a sense, yes. And I think the last thing is, if you're going to buy a home, it's something that you want to be in my opinion, at least 5 to 7 years or longer. Because, I had a condo in Brooklyn before I moved out to Jersey, and I lived there. And my wife's like, "Wow, you did pretty well on the apartment." I sold it for an $80,000. By the time I sold it and had real estate, broker's fees, really didn't do that well, right? So again, you really want to be there in the long term, in my opinion, for investment purposes. Okay, I'm going to go through this slide one more time. Then I'm going to go through, just open up to Q&A. I think before you start to buy, forget about these questions for a second. I think it's important to understand, where do I want to live, right? What is the community like? Who do I want to surround myself with? Are there places in the community that I'm going to start a family? There are things in place that I'm going to be involved in, right? So when I started looking, I was passively looking. I started online, look at Trulia, look at Solo. Then I would actually go visit these places and say, what is the community like? Is this a place that I want to raise my family? I think that's an important part people often overlook is, it's not just about dollars. Where do you want to be from a family perspective? How long do I want to live there? Other things, my cousin's buying a place and she's, excited, but I said, look, Marcella, at the end of the day, don't forget, you need to have cash on the side, because once you have a home, things come up, right? So you want to make sure that there's an emergency fund left over. You don't want to put all of your cash, every penny you have, into the house, right? Do I have enough for a down payment? That's going to explain a little bit later. It doesn't have to be the traditional 20% down, right? Maybe I can put 5% down. Some loans offer 3%. When you buy a home, it's very different from renting, right? Everything falls on me. So it's not just, the property taxes and the maintenance, but it's also, what if there are repairs I have to do? What if something breaks? This year, I had to replace my gutters, an unexpected expense that I, wasn't prepared for. But again, I had an emergency fund, right? So what other insurances do I have, right? As a renter, you don't have to have renter's insurance, but as an owner, you have to have condo or co-op insurance or homeowner's insurance, right? What happens if something happens to my work, right? A lot of people experience a lot of hardships during COVID, from a health perspective, from a job perspective. What if my partner's not working anymore? What if my income is now sliced in half? Am I able to make my mortgage payment work, right? What if I become disabled, unable to work? 48% of foreclosures are due to a long-term disability, right? So maybe I need to make sure I have life insurance or disability insurance. These are all the sort of intangible, right? And then we're going to talk a little bit about credit score as we go into the presentation. So I've said a lot so far. I'm going to pause. Would love to get some feedback. I'm just going to kind of take a look at the chat box, but if you have a question, please feel free to unmute your line and would love to hear some feedback. Nothing so far?
Somebody has to have a question.
All right. Well, I saw someone, and I wanted to ask this since yesterday. I saw someone, they made a statement, they posted something about HSA account versus a FSA account. It said when you start your job, get an HSA account, not FSA, and get the high deductible health insurance. It will lower your tax bracket, and the money is yours to use. You also earn 40% in most cases after $10,000. Now, this was advice given after they had suggested try to get a 15-year fixed mortgage rather than a 30-year mortgage, and to try to avoid the prepayment penalty. I was just trying to wrap my head around the HSA part and the FSA, because I'm not even sure exactly what those two things are. Protection, really.
Absolutely. So HSAs and FSAs are completely out of the spectrum when it comes to home ownership. And I'll start with the last question first. 30-year versus 15-year mortgage. Everyone has different opinions about it. I'm a believer of, if you're young, 30-year mortgage is going to allow you to have the least amount of payment, right? And that gives you more cash flow, because it's not just about lower, what do you do with that extra cash flow? Right? If I have a 15-year mortgage, now my payments might be $1,000 more. What if I could have taken that extra $1,000 and invested that, right, and earned 4, 5, or 7% versus paying a 3% mortgage? So if you're young, and I see a lot of young faces in the room, I like to keep in mind the opportunity cost, keeping more in my pocket. So I favor a 30-year mortgage for that reason. If you're closer to retirement, different story. But I'm a big believer in not prepaying the mortgage, because why do I want to put more money into my house that's earning 0% equity, right? Where I can use that money to buy education funding, for retirement funding, for other investments down the road, right? So money is so cheap right now. Let's take advantage of it. HSA, 401, HSA and FSA are savings accounts, flex spending accounts. Money that you put in pre-tax, money that comes out tax-free if used for health care expenses. FSA is use or lose it. If you don't use the money in your FSA account by March 15th of the following year, you've lost that money. HSA goes with you forever, even until retirement. So I do favor the HSA. Those are the only buckets that money goes in pre-tax and money comes out tax-free. 401k doesn't do that. Roth IRA doesn't do that. So for those who do, because health expenses aren't going anywhere. We're going to spend healthcare. The average retiree from 65 to mortality will spend almost $250,000 in healthcare costs. So HSA, definitely a way to go. Duca had a good question here, explaining how to use 401k money for a down payment. So I'm going to take that question, and then I'll jump back into the presentation. So right now, we typically try to discourage our clients from taking money from a 401k, because again, you're getting in the way of your long-term goals. But it's not always a no, right? If you really, if it makes sense and you're young and you have time to make, absolutely. There are two things you can do. You could borrow from your 401k under the CARES Act, which has changed of the COVID. So you can borrow up to $100,000 from your 401k plan. Excuse me, before COVID, you were able to borrow up to 50% or 50,000, whichever is less. But keep in mind, if I borrow $50,000 from my retirement account, two things are happening. Number one, my money's not working for me in the market anymore. Again, I understand that markets have been volatile this year, but long-term markets are the place to be. Number two, now I have another payment to make, right? I just added to my debt, my liability structure. So now I have more cash flow to understand payment. So not a bad idea, but just something to keep in mind. And the other thing under the CARES Act is I can actually take money from my IRAs and investment accounts that are retirement-based and not pay a 10% penalty. Now, from an IRA, different from 401k, I can take 10 grand, right, without paying my 10% penalty for a first-time home purchase. But if it's a second-time home purchase or I need more than 10 grand, normally speaking, in today's in an environment non-COVID related, I would pay a 10% penalty on top of the taxes. Under the CARES Act, I no longer have to pay that 10% penalty for 2020. So bottom line, there's a lot of rules. I won't spend a lot of time on the rules today. Just that would be the last resort to go to, taking from retirement and non-retirement and IRAs. But it can be done and just with careful planning. So I hope that helps, Maduka. Matt, anything that you want to get in? Anything that I said so far that you want to talk about?
No, I would have just piggyback off that 15-year, 30-year conversation. I always tell people, unless they're super rich and they're like, oh, I just want to pay the 15 and get it over with. I always advise to take the 30-year, and you can always pay it down as a 15-year if you want. But if you come across hard times, you can always pull your payment back down to the 30-year payment. Once you lock into the 15-year payment, you got to pay that 15-year payment no matter what. So I always tell people I think the 30 years is better, and like you said, also you get more cash flow.
Absolutely, yeah. Big fan of flexibility, right? Things happen in life,
especially in a market like this.
Yeah. So good point, Matt. Thank you. So I'm going to jump back into the presentation. Buying versus rent. There's different pros and cons, right? So renting's not a bad thing, right? I have a lot of clients who say, I'm going to move to Florida for retirement. I say, well, or North Carolina or wherever. Why don't you rent first? Maybe back to my point. Maybe you don't like the neighborhood. Maybe you don't like your neighbors. Maybe you don't like what's going on in that area. Why not have the flexibility, right, to rent first and then figure out, where you're going to go, right? So I love the flexibility of renting. There's no risk. You don't have to maintain the property, right? Obviously, there's limited freedom. If you want to, some places won't let you bring in, pets or, certain so on and so forth. But you have some flexibility here. With buying, right, it's yours, right? You can make it the way you want, right? You might be able to actually make money off of it. There's tax deductions, there's a sense of security. But again, all the repairs on you, right? You have to pay property taxes. You need money for down payment. So it takes proper planning. So there's no right or wrong. There's no, buying is much better than renting. There's always that flexibility. So what I always encourage clients to do is, aside from passively looking, start to look at places that you might want, let's do our homework. Like when you start a trip, you start taking inventory of things. Hey, when am I going to pack my bags? What do I need to bring? Well, the same holds true when you're looking to buy a home. Let's get our inventory. Let's do our homework, right? And when we work with someone like Matt from the home team, they're going to ask you for these things anyway. So you might as well get your ducks in a row. So we're going to go over the presentation today, credit score, right? How to improve it, what lenders look at, net worth, right? What are your assets and liabilities and what you need to keep in mind? What does your cash flow look like? And then what are some of the resources that we need to be aware of, right? So the slides are a little bit old, and so the rates have certainly come down. But just to give you a sense of someone who has a FICO score of 740 plus versus someone who's, let's say, 620, 650, is almost a full 1 percentage point in interest rates. And 1 percentage point, 77 basis points may not seem like a lot, but that's $182 extra per month. That's an extra 65 grand over 30 years. That's money that I'd rather have elsewhere, right? So what I would encourage folks to do is, as we prepare to buy a home, let's make sure, what can we do to improve our credit score, right? Look at the credit cards you have. So I'll use a story. My partner Reggie and I are working with a client, AJ, and she's looking to actually rent, but a lot of places when you're renting still want to look at your credit score. So she has all these credit cards, and we're saying, well, look, they're going to look at a couple of things. Are you making your payments on time? What is your debt utilization? Meaning, you have a balance available, 10 grand to borrow, you have 9,000 out. Well, you're using a lot of your credit. We want to bring that down. So we actually advise her to take money from her 401k and pay off these high interest rate credit cards, right? I don't care what the market does. The market is never going to earn a 25% rate of return year over year the way our credit cards charge us. So I had no problem telling her to get rid of her 25% credit card debt because she just had an immediate rate of return, right? So do things like paying your cards on time. I advise her not to cancel your cards because canceling your cards can actually affect your credit score. I advise her not to check her credit score too often, right? So there's certain things. And we work with an organization. They're a nonprofit organization called Green Path Debt Solutions. So if you just Google Green Path Debt Solutions, you find in New York and New Jersey, these is a nonprofit organization that can help you with your credit. All right, so Green Path Debt Solutions. Okay. Other things, and if you don't have credit, you need to start building up credit. Take out a credit card. I remember my sister, when she first started, didn't have credit. I searched for different cards that were online, and you got to start building up credit. Okay. So any questions about credit right now? And Matt, I'd love to get your feedback about credit scores. And I think Tony mentioned it before, we're doing a lot of work. My clientele is probably 60% Black Americans, and from a perspective of just breaking down barriers, what is your thoughts about what Sean Antonio said about different ethnicity groups and getting out there in the marketplace? What's your sort of feedback about credit scores and things of that nature?
So right now for us, as far as credit scores, we go down to 600 credit score. Before pre-COVID, we were actually going down to 500 if they had 10% down. So you don't need a 700 credit score, 740. We have 600 for a FHA, which you could do 3.5% down, and 640 for conventional, but you need 5% down. But there are options, and interest rate right now on an FHA loan is probably about 2.75. You might even get some money back to help with closing costs. So don't, even if your credit's a little shaky, we could always check it out. I could always help you with, I have what's called the what if simulator. I can tell you if you pay off something, your credit score is going to jump this high, or if you I've seen people pay off stuff and the credit score actually goes down. So there's ways to just put it in the system and see what would be the best option for you. But on the flip side, doesn't mean because you have 600, you're guaranteed to get a mortgage as well. We still have to run it through the system, but we can help you and tell you what to do to get prepared to, do that. And this is all with 3.5% down. So literally, you're basically getting a house in New York with probably 10,000 or, even a little bit less possibly.
That's awesome. That what if scenario simulator. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really helpful tool.
Absolutely.
Like you said, too, if you don't have credit, start with a $500 credit card. I literally, when I was young, I messed my credit up, and then I started back over with two $500 cards, just charged, paid on time, and now I'm back up, 740, 750. But you start small and just keep paying it on time, and it works. There's a lot of other tricks too of adding an authorized user or something like that, but that's more in depth of how to pop your score.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And Tony, you mentioned that when we were speaking before, there's a lot of myths out there about, Black Americans having more challenges in terms of getting a mortgage versus white or Asian, or talk about that in terms of lenders and what they look at or what they don't look at.
I mean, truthfully, they're not supposed to look at color or race at all. It's discriminating. I know when I look, first of all, 99% of my clients I speak to on the phone, and I'm not sure what race they are. I literally just look at financials. If you have your job, you have your credit score that's in line, you have your money, to me, color doesn't matter. The only color is green. That's it. So really don't ever feel that way. If you're talking to somebody that's making you uncomfortable in that way, call the next person because they're just not doing, the right thing.
Thank you. Awesome. Very good. Yeah, actually, while we're on the topic, why don't we get into FHA loans for a bit, Matt? What are your can you walk through, because it's funny, I texted Brandon last night, my cousin's buying a place and I think she's going to be FHA eligible. How does that work? What do you need? That sort of thing.
Okay. So FHA is backed by the government. It's a program that allows people with shakier credit and lower down payment. So you could get in FHA with 3.5% down. You can even roll in up to 6% of closing cost if the seller allows it. Okay. So you basically could get in with 3.5% down. Could be your own money. Could get a gift from family. The only thing is when it comes to money when you're doing mortgages, it has to be in the bank. Can't be money that you saved on the side and it's cash and now you're buying a house and you want to, people call, I have 100,000 in the house. I can't, you can't do anything with that at that point. We got to get it into the bank. It has to be in the bank for at least 2 months. So when we go for the purchase, we say we need your last 2 months of bank statements. We don't want to see any large deposits that we can't say where it came from, whether it was a business check, a tax refund. It can't be my cousin gave me $10,000 back and I just threw it into my account. It don't work like that. But FHA is definitely more flexible than conventional. The only downside to FHA is that the PMI is on the loan for the life of the loan. Unless you put 10% or more down. If you put 10% or more down, then it's on for 11 years. But usually when you're going FHA, most people aren't putting 10% down. They're usually putting a lower down payment. That's why they're going into the program. But it's definitely a great tool. Some people frown upon it, but with the way our interest rates are, sometimes I'm like, it's definitely a better deal than conventional. I mean, I've seen 2.625, 2.75, 2.875 and giving back like 5,000 towards closing costs. So there's definitely a good tool for people that have a little bit of shakier credit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. And yeah, that's the one thing I love working with Matt, just so everyone knows. I mean, I've been working with Matt and his group probably for about 13 years now. And, they give it to you straight and they give you the best and objective, options for your situation. They seek to understand, right, the way we do. What are you trying to accomplish? What's important to you? Okay, let's go out there and look at all our options and present to you the best, solution for you. FHA stands for Federal Housing Authority. Is that administration? Federal Housing Administration, I think.
Administration.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing too, just to jump on quick with FHA. So some banks make more money off FHA. So they might push you there and charge you a higher rate because they're going to make more. For me and my company, we get paid the same, whether it's FHA conventional, whether I give you a 2% rate or 4% rate, I still get paid the same. I don't look to upcharge on the rate to make more money, but that some banks will, and they'll try to push you to FHA. Not that you shouldn't be in FHA, but they'll try to steer you there without even trying to offer you a conventional option. Like Matt was saying, when you come to us, we offer you literally what's the best option for you, not just trying to make the most money off you.
Perfect. And then, so I'm looking through the chat box, PMI, personal mortgage insurance. We're going to get to that, Sean. I'll talk a little bit about that. V. Barahona asked, can I give information and talk about 203K loans? Sounds like a typo, might have been 401K loans. So I spoke about that. I'll re-speak about that again, just in a little bit, if you don't mind. And then
no, Matt, she's right. 203K is a rehab loan.
Oh, okay.
Who asked about that?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's an FHA renovation loan. So they'll lend you the money on doing for construction to rehab the home. So it's a great program. The only downside to the program is everything has to be licensed contractors that know about the 203K because they get dispersed as the job goes on. They don't just come hand you all the money and say, here, go do the renovation. So a lot of people that are handy or their families in the business, they think they're going to do it, and then they get turned off when they realize that they can't just go and do the work themselves. But if you truly want to do something with that, it is a great tool with, getting licensed contractors and all that. You can get into a full fixer-upper for 3.5% down and renovate the whole entire house. Got it.
Okay. So will that let you borrow more than what the house is worth? Is that type of loan?
Yes, they'll let you go up to what's it called? Something where they appraise it based off the fixed up value. I forgot the initials. It's ARV or something along those lines. Got it.
Okay. Yes, I know. I've heard of those. Okay. Got it. So 203K loans. I didn't know that was a name for it. So so thank you, V. Barahona, for that question. Great. And then Lumaine asked the question, Matt, are conventional and FHA loans the only two types of loans that allow you to put less than 20% down?
Yeah, those are basically the two main programs. You got FHA, conventional. You have VA. If anybody's a veteran, you could do 100% financing, which is a great program for veterans. And then you could do USDA, but you don't really see that much in New York. It's more of like a rural area, and they could do 100% financing as well.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And again, I think back to the point of, these are great questions, so keep them coming. We're going to talk a little bit about not only just net worth, but also cash flow, right? Because, and I just skipped ahead to cash flow for a second, because if you're going to borrow more, that means you're going to be paying a little bit more in your mortgage payment, which is completely fine. Just understand what that looks like. Okay. So back to the homework, right? Understanding what funds, what is your net worth? It's basically your assets minus your liabilities, right? So we have worksheets that we would encourage folks to complete, and you're going to have to get this. So we would say, start to gather your statements, your savings accounts, your checking accounts, your investments, your retirement. Maybe you have other properties. What about your loan balances, right? Get your ducks in a row as we start to apply for the mortgage or get home ready, so we can understand what is realistic. And that's something we always ask our clients to look at, because when we'll back into it, all right, you want to buy a $500,000 property, assuming you want to put 20% down, that's $100,000. Well, what it costs? That's generally 4% of the loan. So now I need $120,000. Okay, where am I going to come up with that? If I make a $120,000 down payment, what's left in the bank, right? I need to make sure I still have my emerge fund, things of that nature. So I think that's an important piece, to just get your ducks in a row. And I always use the acronym SMART goals. So for example, if you are, yes, I'll send Tonya all the spreadsheets, and this way she can send it out to everyone. So I like to use the term SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable. I'm not sure if I'm typing it correctly. I'm just going fast. Realistic and time bound, right? So there's a difference between I want to buy a house versus I want to buy a $500,000 house with a 20% down payment in 3 years, right? It's specific, it's measurable, it's time bound. So then I can work backwards. All right, well, I need 100,000 in 3 years for a down payment. That's $33,000 a year that I need to save. That is, X amount of dollars per month. Can I do that? Okay. All right, maybe not. Maybe, all right, so can I put down 10%? What does that look like? So I like Matt because he can run the what ifs, on your credit scores. Here on the financial planning side, we run the what if. What if you decided to purchase a home with a 10% down payment? How's that going to affect your long term? What if you decided to whatever may be, right? So I think the what if scenarios are important. Okay. So getting back to the down payment, right? Typically between 5 to 10%. So PMI, PMI is basically saying if you're putting less than 20% down, the bank wants you to take out what's called private mortgage insurance. So, if there is going to be some type of default, they want to make sure that they can recoup the money that was laid out. And so I don't know if this number changed, Matt, because this is an older slide, but it basically is about $44 for every $100,000 borrowed. But I like to just kick it to you because you're the expert. Can you tell us a little bit about PMI and how that works and what that looks like?
Yes. So PMI is private mortgage insurance for anybody that puts down less than 20% on a mortgage. So FHA always has PMI. Even if for some reason you needed it for your credit score and you were putting 25% down, you're still going to have PMI. With conventional, any loan that has 20% down or more doesn't have PMI. But recently, I would say in the last year or two, my bank actually is one of the only ones. There's a few, but we're pretty much the only one that has programs where we could actually do less than 20% down and not have PMI. Going conventional, more so it needs a higher credit score in order for it to make sense. But it's definitely a good program to keep in mind. With FHA, like I mentioned before, it's on there for the life of the loan unless you put 10% down. But when I say for the life of the loan, even though you have FHA, you could refinance when you think you have enough equity or your credit score now is much better. You can refinance from FHA into conventional and then remove your PMI down the road. FHA, give me 1 second. Let me just calculate this. So for FHA, for 100,000, your PMI would be about $70 a month.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. And then FHA also has an upfront mortgage insurance, which gets rolled into the mortgage. Okay, that's another thing that they have. It's 1.75% of the loan amount, but you don't pay that out of pocket. That ends up getting rolled into the mortgage.
Got it. Okay.
And then conventional, let's just say you went conventional and you have 15% down. When you get to 20% down, you should be able to just call the bank and, tell them you want to order an appraisal and get your PMI removed.
Got it. Okay, great. Let's pause here for a second. Anyone have questions about PMI? I see Raymond has a question, so we'll address that. Any other questions about PMI or anything of that nature?
Okay,
So yeah, Raymond's question was, what role those student loans play in credit or home ownership process, if any? Many people, like myself, it's probably 95% of my debt, and we see that a lot, Raymond. I think student loans took over revolving debt and credit card debt about 3 years ago, most amount of debt out there. So a couple of things I'll say to that. They definitely look at the amount of income that, what percentage of your income is going towards debt payments, regardless of the debt payments. So they're going to look at that. But there are a lot of players in the market to use a company, and I'm just going to make a note here. GradFin. I work with an organization called GradFin, and then there are companies like Common Bond, SoFi, First Republic, who are being very aggressive in student loan refinancing. So right now, for those of you who have federal loans, the administration now has extended the 0% interest till December 31st, so it buys us some time. So that to me is, well, take that extra cash flow and pay down the private loans. But look at these organizations, and I can connect you with my partner at GradFin, because what GradFin does is they search the marketplace and say, all right, based on your situation, this is the lender that you're better to refinance with. So a lot of players out there, but yeah, they're going to look at it, and just because they want to understand, all right, you have an obligation to pay X amount of dollars per month. You're going to add another obligation to pay Y. They want to try to stick in that 36% range of your income. And Matt, I would welcome any comments to that in terms of just debt to income ratios.
Yeah, debt to income is another one where FHA is more flexible. They'll let you go up to 56% of your combined of your debt to income. So a lot of times also when shopping for a house, like you said before about buying the max house you can qualify, the bank will lend you most of the time what you'll think is probably more than you think you would qualify for. But the bank doesn't take in for account of how many times you go out to eat, how many times you go on vacation, what kind of clothes you buy or shoes. They just look at your debt and stuff like that. But to get onto that student loan thing as well, right now is a little tricky time because they put everybody on forbearance. Every student loan is on forbearance. So when we're going for a loan for FHA, we have to do 1% of the outstanding balance and hit you for that. And same thing conventional. One program we could do a half a percent. But normally if you're in a payment program, if it's income based or anything like that, and it's fully amortized over the 30 years, we can use that lower payment. But right now we're just running into trouble because everybody's on a zero forbearance and we can't get any type of payment proof.
Got it.
So it's a little tricky right now with student loans.
Okay. Can you repeat, Matt, from Barahona, the how to get rid of PMI?
Yeah, so if you're in a conventional loan and you have the 20% equity, a lot of banks are different. So you can try and call them and say, hey, I think I have 20% equity in my house. I want to do an appraisal and see if it comes in. They usually let you do that. If it's like a year later, they might be a little tricky on it because they do want to make sure. FHA is for the life of the loan unless you sell or refinance out of it into conventional.
Thank you. And then Shaimi says, what's your best advice to live mortgage free or to spend your life repaying a loan for a home if you're a fresh graduate student? And you advise to buy a home as quickly as you start a job. So, I think those questions are really relevant to your situation, because if you're a fresh graduate student, I had another conversation with Chantel the other day, and she's like, I want to buy a home, but she's like, I don't know where I'm going to live. I'm taking on this, I'm taking on that. I said, look, if you buy a home, you pay the upfront closing costs, and then if you have to sell then you have to pay the broker's fees. I mean, I think ideally you're going to want to live in the place that you're going to buy for your home 5 to 7 years or longer to make financial sense. So I wouldn't worry about just buying a home just for the sake of buying a home. Again, getting back to making sure that it's a place that you actually want to live in. Now, if it's for investment purposes, a different story, as long as you have enough liquidity to meet your other goals. And then, again, money is so cheap right now. I think it was like 5 years ago when mortgage rates came back down. Even Mark Zuckerberg took out a mortgage. Well, why? Because he could borrow at 2 or 3% and have the money that he's earning on the side do better for him, right? So the whole thing is, kind of arbitrage, right? If I can do better than what I'm borrowing, why not take advantage of that? So that's just some thoughts there. We have 14 minutes. I want to make sure we cover a couple of things and keep it open for some questions. So I'll try to maybe go through some of the high points of the presentation and then get back to the Q&A, because I'm loving the Q&A today. The other thing that comes into the home is closing costs, right? You're going to pay other fees, broker's fees, attorney's fees, closing costs. So just keep that in mind, right? Generally, it's about 4% of the mortgage amount, right? So if I borrow $500,000, I have another $20,000 of fees. Now, again, Matt and his team might be able to roll some of those costs back into the mortgage so you borrow it. So things to keep in mind, but other things, right? Having an attorney, right? Homeowners insurance. I said before, 48% of foreclosures are due to a disability, right? So maybe I need disability insurance if my employer is not providing it. Moving expenses, right? Changing the locks. I mean, all these things you don't think about, reserve another $10,000 for the what ifs, because they will happen, right? And then understand your cash flow, getting back to that very quickly, right? What's your gross income? Is it just you? Is it you and your spouse or partner? What are your current expenses? So we always, give our clients an expense worksheet. I guess that's not here, but I'll send that over to Tonya as well. Understand what your needs are versus what your wants, and understand what's going to change. One of the best pieces of advice that I got from a family friend when I was buying my first home was, look, if my rent is $1,000 a month, my mortgage and everything else is going to be $2,000. I might as well start to do two things. Number one, let me save an extra $1,000 a month. So if I'm renting for $1,000, I know it's not a realistic number, and I'm buying a place that's going to cost me $2,000 a month with property taxes and mortgages. Well, number one, I have to get used to that new payment. I might as well get used to it now, but save that extra $1,000 a month. Why? Because now I'm creating a down payment. So I'm getting used to the new cash flow. I'm getting used to the new feel of it, because I'm going to be forced to do that anyway. And then so I would always encourage clients, do a cash flow worksheet now, and then do a pro forma. What is it going to look like in the future? So at least I'm better prepared for it. Okay. So that's just a bit on cash flow. Lenders like Matt are going to look at this with you as well. Conventional mortgage programs, 38% are going to look at your ratio, right? So for example, I have my housing expenses, $1,400 a month. That's my mortgage payment, my car payment, credit cards, student loans, $1,800 a month. Well, if I'm bringing in $5,000 a month gross and I'm spending $1,800 a month on my liabilities, my debt to income ratio is about 36%. And that's a typical rule of thumb. I know FHA may let you go up to 54, but again, to Matt's point, what about the other 46%? What do I need to keep, food on the table and do the things that I enjoy doing and I need to do, right? So, don't just look at the down payment, look at your cash flow, right? And how is that going to feel moving forward? The last thing you want to do is a year out from now have to go to foreclosure because you didn't think, down the road. So, and it's always different, right? There are different types of housing, single family, multifamily, condos, co-ops, multifamily, right? I have a gentleman who wants to buy a brownstone in East New York. It's like, all right, perfect. The advantage he might have is he might have renters on the top floor help paying his mortgage. What if he can't find a renter, or what if the renter's not paying his mortgage, right? So, I mean, his rent. So again, things to think about. The what ifs. What if I can't get renters right away? Because that stuff does happen. And sometimes co-ops, right, have more, higher down payment. You have to put down 30% for a co-op sometimes, or 20%. You can't do FHA loans for certain co-ops, right? So just be mindful of the property you're looking to purchase. And then there's some just really good stuff out there in terms of first-time home purchase. Do your research is basically what I recommend. I'm a big believer. Bankrate.com has great calculators to figure out down payments and what that would look like. There are a lot of classes out there for first-time home purchases. We're going to share our information today, so reach out to myself, reach out to Matthew Gordon. There's plenty of resources out there. But as you can see, it's not just the down payment. There's a lot more goes into it from a financial perspective, but also from like what's important to me in perspective in terms of where I want to live and what I'm trying to accomplish. And then the last thing I'll talk about is just real estate investments. And there's passive investments, there's active investments. An active investor, he or she is going to source that property. They're going to be responsible for, the upkeep, the maintenance. Things go wrong, you're getting a call, right? You're on the hook for all the work. So it's work to be an active real estate investor. Whereas passive real estate investors, basically there are funds out there, and some of you came to the Johnstown Capital crew. The folks at Johnstown Capital are three gentlemen that I work with in Union County, and they go out and they find investment opportunities. And so I can put in $10,000, $20,000 so that I can get a rate of return, something that's not correlated to what I'm doing on the outside, and not have to do any of the work, which is nice, right? They're doing the work. And so again, there's risks and rewards for both. But when you're looking at passive real estate, make sure you're doing your homework, right? Do these people have experience? What is their track record? Look at the numbers, the financials, and we're happy to share what's going on with those folks as well. So awesome. Yeah, Matt, perfect. Thanks for putting that stuff in there. I was going to put your email address, so that's perfect. So let's keep it open. I mean, I think we got 10 minutes. Let's just questions about home ownership or other financial questions. We're here to answer them for you.
Don't have any questions, just really, really awesome information. And of course, you guys know by now that we share your email list to presenters so that they could contact you directly and share your information. And you should get this, and you should receive this usually within 24 hours, right? So we're just really, really, really grateful, Matthew Delpriore as well as Matthew Gordon. Really powerful information. And I think the main takeaway for me was sort of thinking, sort of operating from the end in mind, using the SMART goals. So decisions would be based on not only as life happens, but what do I want as that long-term goal that we're going towards, and so sort of keeping the end in mind. And as my dad would say, save until it hurts, sort of mentality, because because you want to get somewhere. It's really good.
Yeah, that was awesome presentation.
Yes.
All around.
All
and the
around.
Participation. It was great.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you guys. And Matthew, I just wanted to say, even though you're in bed, you could have told us, guys, sorry, can't make it. You didn't do that. You showed up. You showed up, even if you just had to sit up, and that's huge.
With info.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
I will be going back to sleep soon.
Okay.
Shamay has a question. What's the price of your first home that you can pay quickly if you don't have any more loans?
Any other loans?
I mean, at 30, I guess it depends on the income as well. And, it's all relative to your income and your savings. So if you're making $50K a year plus some help with parents, I would take a look at your expenses and understand what your needs are and what your, 50K a year, just very quick, math. If we did a 36%, 50,000, right? That's a $1,500 a month mortgage. That's a mortgage that's probably in the, a little bit more than 300,000, but again, to account for property taxes and other costs. So I would say probably in that $250,000 to $300,000 borrowing range is appropriate for someone for about a $50,000.
Yeah, so a quick rule of thumb. It's probably a little bit less right now because rates are so good, but figure for every $100,000 that you borrow is $500 a month plus taxes and insurance. So take your taxes if they were $3,600 for the year, that's $300 a month, and then your insurance probably should be about $100 a month, somewhere in that range. So you'll add like another $400 to however many, 100,000 that you're thinking about borrowing.
Yeah.
Just to keep a gauge if you're just trying to think quick numbers in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to before there's other questions. So cash flow, net worth, the disability. There's something else I needed to send over. I'm going to send you a whole bunch of stuff, Tonya, once I gather my thoughts, and then this way we can forward it to the group. Vibarahona asked something about disability. I always bring up disability insurance, and no one likes to talk about life insurance, or no one likes to talk about dying or getting hurt, right? These are topics of avoidance, not of, something that you're happy to speak about, but it's important to speak about. Everyone in this room today shares one thing in common. So there's a lot of things in common, but the one thing that I say your most important asset is your ability to wake up in the morning and earn an income. And if you can't do that anymore, everything else falls apart. So when you build a home, you start with a strong foundation. Same holds true with our financial planning. So if you're buying a home, life insurance is there to protect those that you love. So, Sean and Tonya have a beautiful baby girl, Leia. God forbid something happens to them, she's going to depend on their income. And if they're not there, things start to fall apart, right? Matt has children. Right? And then the other part is the disability insurance. If I can't wake up in the morning and earn an income, how am I going to pay the mortgage, right? 48% of foreclosures are due to a disability. The bank doesn't care if I become disabled. They still want their payment. So now I'm going to be forced to sell my house. So again, these are other costs that, again, not fun to talk about, but important. And so don't just take for granted what's at your employer, because oftentimes what your employer gives is not enough. And if you're not there anymore, then you're going to lose that coverage. So, Matt and I are clients of each other's. Tonya and Sonia, we're clients of each other's, right? We eat our own cooking, right? We believe in what we're talking about, and we practice.
Yeah, I have another baby coming November, so we got to start talking again soon for some new policies.
Yeah. Congrats, that's awesome. Let's see, any other questions? So yeah, Tonya, we'll definitely send some spreadsheets to. Perfect. Yeah, well, we got some more time. I'm going to hang on until we're kicked off.
There is. I'll jump in one more thing. So there is a program out there that we're on board with called Sony May for first-time home buyers. They have down payment assistance. They could give you up to $15,000. You have to be a first-time home buyer. There's some income limits on it as well. There's two different programs. You guys can check out the website. It's if you Google Sony May, it'll come up, SONYMA. And that one's a little bit more credit driven. They definitely want to see 3-year history of no late payments and stuff like that. But if you fit into that box, it's a great program with low interest rates, and they'll actually, give you money to use towards down payment or closing costs. It's Sony May. Yeah, and that's in for the state of New York. It's a part of their program.
Guys, again, if we could unmute and just give our panelists some love with a round of applause, because this is some really thorough, awesome information. Thank you so much. So guys, of course, we've been doing this. Nolo gave us this idea, and we've been doing this, I think, for about 4 months now. We have our meetings the third Saturday of every month, same time, 10 to 11. We want to give the most engaging information, most practical information in 60 minutes, right? And of course, all of this is free. We just ask you to just share the word. You want your loved ones, your friends to learn this information too. Let them know what we're doing here at RLRG. Let them know what we're doing with our partners at Fortis and Freedom Mortgage. And that, guess what? That we can own homes, we can get our financial goals and dreams met, and just celebrate each other's successes. And we're a real We have a real mastermind team here, and it's just beautiful. It's just encouraging. That's what we do. Iron sharpens iron. We can do this.
And if you have any ideas, specific topics, particularly along these lines as well,
Yes.
then let us know, and we'll be able to inform the presenters on what they may be able to speak about in the future.
Yes, we just emailed Mass. Mass, you told us about the group that deals with student loans. So maybe we could ask them to come on to our next presentation.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're doing financial education. We're doing social emotional. That's what Sean and I do. Educational. Right, so we want to support you. You let us know how to best do that, and spread the word on social media. Let them know the great things that you're learning, and we could all support each other. And that brings us to a wrap. Matthew D, Matthew G, congratulations, and thank you. And we look forward to having you guys back soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care,
your
guys.
day.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
again. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you.